You're listening to the Ask Drone U podcast. You ask, we answer your drone questions. Whether you're here to turn your passion into profit or you simply fly for fun, we're a community of learners and teachers who aspire to achieve greatness. We are
Drone U.
Hey everyone, welcome to another awesome episode of Ask Drone U, and a very happy birthday to Mr. Rob B.
Oh, well, thank you, Paul, and welcome everybody to episode number 405. Yes, a very special birthday, I suppose.
How old are you
now? It's my birthday.
It is your birthday.
Old. I'm old, Paul.
You're not that old. I made the mistake of making an old joke earlier.
Yeah.
And I didn't even do it consciously. That was the weird thing.
I'm 46.
That's not old at all.
No, I feel about, 45.
You should be happy. You're halfway there.
Halfway where?
I'm not going there.
To heaven.
To the stairway to heaven.
Yeah, something like that. No, it
kidding.
feels good. I feel good. I don't feel that old. I really don't.
You still look 35, so.
I'm going to go for a run just to show that I can.
You run more than I do.
Well,
if anything,
anyways.
you're in better shape than I am. Anyway, very happy birthday.
Thank you.
Hello to everyone out there. Just want to say, I was gone this weekend on a little bachelor escapade, so I haven't been really active on Facebook, but please don't forget to leave us a review or share the podcast. If it has ever helped you or provided value, it's very important to us.
Indeed.
It really helps other people see the podcast. But anyway, let's get right into it. Rob, we've got a great question today, which is again brought to you by the live class that we've got going on in California. It's too late to sign up to actually be there in person though, right?
It is too late to be there in person, but
You can still attend via the live stream, right?
you can. And all you got to do is still just go to droneulive.com. And there's a
Yes.
link there to sign up.
We also have more good news. We finally got some swag in for Drone U. I'm holding it here, so if you're listening on iTunes or Stitcher, check out the YouTube feed. It's always a few days behind, but they are lens cleaners, but everyone needs lens cleaner. You always go through them, and
Yeah, or sunglasses or
Yeah.
your computer screen, whatever.
whatever it is. Either way, I see a misprint on this one.
No way.
Oh yeah, I think I see actually a misprint. Now I'm discovering things that look wrong on them now.
Oh, well.
Anyway.
It'll still clean your
It'll still
lens.
clean your lens. It still says Drone U on it, and you're still getting it for free. So if you have been waiting for a swag bag, the stuff
We're
has
still
been,
not there yet. A little bit of it has come in.
Yes, a little bit of it has come in. We've got a lot more coming in, but
we jumped the gun on that. But that's all right.
I tend to jump the gun always.
I didn't say you. I said we.
Yeah. So anyway, well, guys, we're really happy that we're here. Let's get right into today's question.
Hey guys, my name's Dan from Kentucky, and I've got a Phantom 4. I just purchased it maybe 3 weeks ago or whatever, and I'm playing around with it, trying to figure out how to get the jello effect out of it. I'm using some ND filters, and I've played around with the with all my settings and stuff, and I still can't seem to get the jello effect out of it. It seems to do it more, of course, in all movement, but it does it really bad when I yaw, which is a typical problem, I'm sure. Anyway, I wanted to see what you could suggest. Otherwise, it works great, but sure would like to get my image and my video to look a lot smoother. So tell me what you can. Thank you. Bye.
I think I've got a famous quote from one of my lacrosse coaches from high school.
Cool.
And many times I'd be, running around, and I was a shooter, so I played midi, I played attack, and there were many times that I would miss the cage by inches, and I'd always blame my stick, and be like, "Stupid stick!" Ugh! But my coach said to me, Rob, it's not always the equipment, but rather the operator.
Yeah.
And that's something that, I think it's one of those humbling lessons that we all have to kind of, understand that sometimes it's not always the equipment, rather the operator.
Well, I would say probably, and again, number one, we appreciate the question. It's a good question. And gosh, like we always say, I think a lot of people are dealing with this, because what we're talking about, Paul and I were talking about before coming on here, is that there's probably a lot of people that are dealing with this because they don't necessarily have the photography background or the videography background, but they love drones. And so they're learning how to fly. They're getting better at that. But maybe even more importantly, going to have to learn the photography side. And that sounds like maybe this is kind of the boat that he's in. And a lot of people are.
Well, I think it's also, I think you said that very well. It's, people coming into drones who don't have a lot of experience with cameras, and it's a learning curve for them. And yes,
Right.
a lot of new people do have this question. I know you experienced guys are going to be like, I probably know exactly what I'm going to say.
Right.
And that's fine. This is gonna Monday morning for you. We're starting the week off early, or easy, excuse me. Anyway, that being said though, this is something that even experienced guys have issues with if they get caught up in the moment and they don't go through their checklists and everything. So I think what we can definitely do is provide him with some ways to, number one, slow the bird down a little bit. Because I think what he's going to learn is the way that you control the vehicle is so important if you want to eliminate jello. And you see people yaw all the time, just like, and you see this in shows all the time. You see this in the Drone U community when guys are like, I'm watching HGTV, I'm watching the Discovery Channel, I'm watching this and that. And as I'm watching the footage, it's just rocking side to side. And I'm like, it's the curse of knowledge, right?
Right.
But when you're a new drone operator, you don't really kind of know these things. And this is also an issue too, I would say, for people who are trying to hire drone operators. They're wondering why they have these effects in their video, and it's not really the equipment, but rather the operator itself.
Most of the time, it probably is the operator.
Yes. Now, ND filters do help out. We saw really more vibration-based jello in the old Phantom 2s and the Phantom 1s with the original, H3 2D or H2 2D gimbals. But now with the integrated kind of magnesium frame with the Phantom 4 and the built-in gimbal that's now not on the outside of the body anymore, it's now integrated into the frame, we have a lot less vibration. So what can he do really quick? He's said he's worked out to replace his lens with an ND filter, and that's not helping. So what can he do? Well, first thing he can do is slow down his yaw gain. He can go into his DJI Go app, open up the settings, the main settings, go into the bird settings, and then it's advanced, and it'll say like yaw gain, roll gain, pitch gain, elevation gain.
Did you say roll gain? That's kind of
roll gains.
Rude. Oh, roll gains. Okay. Just want to make sure you're not slipping that in there. Sorry, go ahead.
I normally increase all of my gains for pitch, roll, and elevation, but yaw, I reduce the gain a little bit. I think it's actually by 5%. And that's going to just essentially give you a little bit slower yaw movement. But I will say you've really got to run through some exercises to understand really how utilizing yaw can help you get shots, because most people think, especially when they get a new drone, they think linearly, right? I see this all the time when I train people. They first get a drone and they fly from here to the corner of that room in the straightest line possible.
Right.
And then they turn around and they go in a straight line across the field. It's always get there, turn around, move again. And that's the worst way you could fly. But how do you know if you just bought a drone and you didn't get any education or any training? Because no one reads the note before you fly, before they pull the drone out of the box.
Well, and those guys are they're just kind of getting comfortable with the controller and how the bird responds to the controller, which is all good stuff to get comfortable with, obviously.
Now, I will recommend, too, if you are new to drones, and I know most of you are not, but if you are new to drones, make sure you always keep the orientation of the drone and yourself the same, because as soon as you flip that bird around and it's looking at you, you're going to notice that there's going to be a couple controls that aren't going to act the way that you think they're going to react. Anyway, that being said, after he reduces his roll gain, I think the best thing that he can do, Rob, is, some figure 8 practice where he's utilizing his roll, his pitch, and his yaw at the same time. I think people will find it actually easier if you learn to use all 4 flight control surfaces at the same time, because you can control how much you're moving instead of, trying to create this perfect straight line and then a slow turn.
Right.
Just, nature doesn't have very many straight lines. They're very organic shapes. So you can always tell the best pilot too by how much they bank their turns, like is it a nice smooth, slow banking turn? So go do some figure 8s, work on utilizing your pitch, your roll, your elevation, your yaw at the same time, because you'll better be able to control the smoothness of the motion, really.
So what about flight mode? Does that impact in terms of his learning process and the learning curve here for him?
I think, it's really important that most people, if you're going to get serious with drones, learn to fly in attitude mode. I think it's also really important to not fly near stuff. I think, if you're flying in a park or a big open field, learn to fly in attitude mode, because you're going to learn that the bird can float a lot more. It's going to feel more organic, but you're not going to be able to like GPS mode, take your hands off the sticks and the bird's going to stop. No,
Right.
if there's a wind, it's going to float in the wind.
Which you can really use to your advantage.
Yes, you can. That's absolutely right. For new guys, though, they're mostly practicing in GPS mode. So they're so nervous, right? They pick up the remote and they're just like going around, like flying. And then they get close to something, they just let off the sticks. And that becomes their habit.
Right.
And that cannot become your habit, or else you'll never become a good drone pilot.
So, and we've talked about this ad nauseum in the past, although it's been a little while. Would you recommend, even now to this day, that somebody start learning in GPS, or just jump right into attitude and get used to that instead?
No, I think, this is something that Matthew Neal brought up, one of our local pilots. And he said, I had to get started in GPS mode first. I had to. And I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you, when I'm taking photos, I'm in GPS mode, because if the bird moves too much, you get a little bit of blur.
Sure.
So, learning in GPS at first is fine.
Okay.
But I'd say once you log, say, maybe 5 hours of flight.
Not much.
No, not much. And if you think about it, you can get 3 batteries per hour. So 15 cycles pretty much.
Okay.
And you're ready to start attitude mode.
Okay.
So
Cool. So I guess one way to look at that is, if you're really, really good at GPS mode, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be good at attitude. And there's not a direct correlation to getting better at attitude by flying in GPS. Alternatively, if you're flying in attitude, you're going to naturally be good in GPS as well.
Oh, yeah.
So it just makes more sense to spend more time in attitude mode.
Well, again, one of the things that my coach taught me is that if you learn the most difficult things first,
Right.
everything else is easy. So
Yeah, exactly.
now, I know people may be like, oh, attitude mode is so difficult. It's really not that hard. Just think of the difference very simply. GPS, you stop moving the sticks, the bird stops. But in attitude mode, like a hockey puck, once you move the hockey puck, it's not going to stop. It's going to keep going in the initial direction that you made it go.
Sure. Okay, so to summarize, really what we're talking about here, you mentioned a couple of settings that he can mess with, but
Yep.
really what we're talking about is him learning to control the bird and fly it smoothly.
Yeah, so very simply, instead of, a lot of guys practice doing straight lines where there's no yaw movement at all. That's really easy. I mean, it's really, really easy if you have the bird in attitude mode instead of GPS, because if you have an error in your GPS signal, or like in the last 3 weeks, I haven't flown in New Mexico at all. I don't know if you know that, because there's been huge GPS interference here, because there's been anti-GPS jamming testing going on in Alamogordo, and it's so powerful that 300 miles away, we're able to feel it. I mean,
Wow.
My navigation system hasn't been working properly. Uber hasn't been working properly. I mean, a lot of navigation-based things are not
Really?
working.
Had no idea.
Well, I put the notice out on Drone U a while ago so that all the local guys knew about it. But that being said, if you're in GPS mode, I know this sounds weird, but you're actually introducing more potential problems than if you were in attitude mode. Because if you're in attitude mode, you can control just about everything about the bird.
Yeah, because the GPS brings in sort of a third layer of technology that doesn't exist with attitude mode.
That's true.
Correct?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
Interesting.
like, for example, and I've seen this happen, if you're trying to make a straight line in GPS mode, you can have all of a sudden a little yaw clip, where your bird just turns a little bit. And you don't want that. If you're in attitude mode and it's a light wind and you just move your pitch forward and you don't touch the yaw stick at all, it's not going to yaw either way.
Right.
So, I would say, back to your point, if we're looking at new pilots who think about these straight lines, a good pilot who's banking their turns and learning to smooth out their yaw movements is going to take that same straight line and kind of curve it out. It's going to become a parabola.
Yeah. So the yaw just becomes one gear in your overall movement instead of a
Yeah, instead of
quick-
thinking linearly, you're
Yeah.
thinking more organic lines.
Right.
And it's something, even when we shot with, what was it, ABC recently, and the guy was like, I've never seen anyone fly like you. Every single thing you do with that drone is a curve or something. I've never seen anyone do that before. And there's a reason to that. It's you're introducing every flight control characteristic so that you can move it exactly how much you want. So it's
Awesome.
like, and you know how I am with driving, right? I'm not going to go into a turn, with my RPMs down at 1500. I'm going to be in second gear right at the bottom of the power band, ready to power through the turn halfway through. I mean, that's what they teach you at BMW driving school. That's what I think of the same thing with drones.
Yeah,
Okay?
feel sorry for all those old people on the interstate when Paul comes down the bike. That's a scary proposition.
What? I recently, Mark from APD, he said, Paul, I'm glad I'm retired now because I can tell you very nicely just to slow down without threatening you.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
Anyways, guys, thank you for that question. I know you experienced guys probably knew all of those things, and it's not new information to you. But for those of you who are new, you have to understand there are thousands of things that work together to make your drone fly the way that it flies. And if you can master the different ways that it can fly, you truly will become a master professional pilot, just like what we talk about in the book, Living the Drone Life.
Absolutely.
Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for us today. Thank you again. For everyone who listens, guys, if you know a new pilot, send them this episode. Why? Because you're helping the community grow and progress. We're also helping eliminate problems. We don't want people to fly their drones and hit other people. We don't want them to cause issues. And the best way to combat that issue is simply just sharing information and knowledge. So will you help us? Will you help the drone community? I hope you will. That's going to do it for us today. My name is Paul.
I'm Rob.
This is Ask Drone U.